Welcome
That's
back to
fine.
MMA Unhinged. And joining me today is the body snatcher, Jesse Ronson. Jesse, how are you, man?
I'm good. Just got home from the gym. First training session done for the day. Gonna do this, walk my dogs, eat, and then back to the gym again for session number 2.
Well, let's jump right into it because I don't want to take too much of your time here. So, how are you? How are you feeling as we're less than a month out from your fight?
They're great, man. I'm fighting at a catch weight, so it's probably the first time in ever. Even though I moved up a weight class to 170, it's like there's still some weight. Like first couple of times I fought there, like the first time the cut was easy. Then I started getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So now it's like it's always stressful having to make weight. But yeah, I've known about this fight for probably about 3 weeks before they actually announced it because my opponent was supposed to fight, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, but then they canceled the show. And it was all dependent on how that fight went. But because they canceled the show, he's obviously healthy, and then he didn't want to cut again. So he's like, let's do a catch weight. So yeah, everything's good, man. I'm good. No stress. I feel great. Feel strong.
And obviously, you're fighting at a different weight, but this is that catch weight. So, is there any weight that you do have to cut, or you walk? Is it your walk around weight? Where are you
Oh
sitting
no.
at?
I was 193 last Friday. So I was like, okay, like normally I like to be 20 pounds over a week out. So I'm 13 pounds over and I still got a month. So I just been eating more. I haven't checked my weight in probably 4 or 5 days. Like I said, well, sorry, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Yeah. I'm not worried about it because I was 193. So I'll be okay.
And looking at your training camp, what is a typical training camp timeline for you?
Nowadays I like to do 6 weeks because I peak earlier and earlier. I know how my body works and operates. It takes me about 3 weeks to get in peak shape. But the issue with that is usually I have more weight to cut. So it's like I get in peak shape in 3 weeks, and then if I spend 5 weeks training, I overtrain, I get hurt or whatever it is. So it all depends on how much weight I have to cut. But moving up to 170, usually 6 weeks is all it takes. This fight at 180, even better. But at 55, my last couple of fights at 55, I was getting injured because I would get in great shape after 3 weeks, but then I would still have, 6 or 7 weeks of training left because I had to lose so much fucking weight. So yeah, ideally 6 weeks for a regular camp, 8 weeks for a title fight. But yeah, this time it's 4 weeks, but like I said, I've known about this fight for a little bit, so I've been slowly grooving into it. So now I pick up the training now the last couple of weeks.
And obviously, I know that you're trained over at Adrenaline MMA in London. Is there anywhere else that you're going to go for this training camp?
Yeah, Saturdays I spar at BTC. That's like the meeting ground for everybody. So everybody from Niagara Top Team to House of Champions, all over Toronto, all the best guys in Ontario, pretty much that do MMA, stop in there on Saturdays to spar and get their grappling work, and then we just kind of powwow at the end. I know when Malot's there and myself, same with Ergus and Prickett, we all just sit there at the end and we kind of review stuff. We drill some stuff. It's like it's a serious fucking mental sesh at the end there that a lot of people should be sitting in on because I learn more on those than I do actually sparring or whatever it is. But yeah, BTC on Saturdays, and then I go to Hamilton to train with my the Dutch kickboxing Muay Thai coach Adam Higson. Who's like a 7-time pro champion. I'm there twice a week, and then all the other times I'm just at Adrenaline. I got people coming in to see me to help me train. Yeah, but home base is London.
Yeah, and you talked about being able to train over the BTC, like the hub there.
Mhm.
I asked you a question a few days ago, talking about like how in Ontario there's so many fighters, the MMA community is so big, but there's so many fighters that know each other. And you talked about how the
Yeah.
matchmaking can be very difficult as a result of that. When you go over and train over the BTC, do they have anything set up so you're not training where your opponent might be, depending on who you're fighting?
Well, I've got 40 fights. There's nobody in fucking Ontario. Sorry, my German Shepherd here is trying to get some attention. There's nobody that I'm not like. The only guy that I potentially could fight would be Ergus Sagata, and he's my boy. He's my buddy. We're training partners. We're never going to fight each other. Uh, so I'm not too worried about that. We're both happy. He's in Unified. I'm in BTC. He's probably going to go to UFC early next year. he'll be well on his way. So we'll just be good training partners. But back in the day, it was like, all right, boys, it was gym versus gym. Fucking fight each other first and then train with each other afterwards. But now, like you said, everybody's training with everybody. So it's so difficult for local promotions to stay cheap, to match local versus local, because that's what they want to do. It costs a ton of money to fly guys in and put them up in hotels. And this is what people don't realize. It's like, yeah, you're not getting fights that you want because they got to fly somebody in for you. And to be honest, you're not worth it. Unless you're a big star or you're pulling in huge ticket sales or whatever it is, it's really not worth it to fly in a guy to fight you if you're 0-1, 1-0, less than 5 fights, or you're a mega star. So like I said, people need to stop doing all this cross training so often, or, be friends afterwards, like fight each other and be friends afterwards. I know it's hard. It happened to me way back in the day. I used to train with Patrick Pitlick. I don't know if you know who he is. He was supposed to be fighting for the unified title next week, but his opponent got hurt. Him and I were great training partners, and then we ended up fighting each other, but like we didn't want to do it. And then like, okay, well, we'll make it for the Canadian title. So we ended up fighting for the Canadian title. I won that fight, but then him and I just kind of stopped training and we fell apart. Recently, we've reconnected, but that's like 15 years later. So it's like I can understand not wanting to train with the guy that just beat you or you beat him. It happened to Chad Laprise when he won the Ultimate Fighter. He moved to Montreal and he was in the same gym as Olivier and Cajun Johnson and a bunch of guys. And all they were trying to do was take his head off, try and hurt him all the time. And that's bullshit. So yeah, it's difficult. That's why I said fight first and be friends later. Don't become friends and then fight after, or you'll never fight. Or don't complain when you don't get fights, because they got to fly somebody in for you.
Absolutely. And at Adrenaline MMA, there's a lot of great coaches over there. There's a lot of great people that you're training with over there. But for this fight, do you know who's going to be in your corner and who's overseeing your camp this time?
Same guys in my corner for this one. It's going to be Jesse Goff out of 519 Martial Arts, my jiu-jitsu coach, Andrew Elliott, my MMA and wrestling coach, and then I got Ross Milet. He's a pro boxer, but we were on Team Canada kickboxing for a couple of years. We have the same type of pedigree. We have the same roots. He knows my style. He knows my combo list, and he just knows how I fight. So it's not that I don't see him very much, but like on fight night, he just knows what to do. He knows, like I said, he's probably seen me fight probably 50 times, pro and amateur. So he just knows everything that I need to do. So I don't really need to train with Ross to make that connection because we've known each other for so long. Otherwise, if it wasn't Ross in my corner to call combos and help me with the striking, it would be either Adam Higson or Brad Fowler. But yeah, as for overseeing my camp, I do that. I run my own camp and how I do it. And I just have different coaches at every practice that I go to. So like I said, if I'm doing a jiu-jitsu practice, Goff will be there. If I'm doing a wrestling MMA practice, Andrew will be there. If it's striking, it'll either be Brad or Adam. But then, like I said, in the fight, Ross knows Adam and he knows Brad's style and he knows my style. And we just click together. It's like a video game controller, he just plugs himself into the back of my head and I just go. And it's been great.
And, we previously discussed, you talked about how this fight came to be, why it was at catch weight, and why you weren't defending your belt. I know you're always down to fight, but when you were told that you weren't going to be able to defend the belt and you were going to be offered a catch weight fight, were you kind of bummed it by any means, considering you got your belt and you would obviously want to defend it?
Defending, yeah. The only thing that sucks is that I'm getting a little bit less money because I'm not defending the title. But other than that, like I'm just grateful to get the fight. You know what I mean? I wanted to fight one more time, and if I didn't get this fight, that would be it for this year probably. Like I was trying to scramble to fight December 15th for Unified against Shane Campbell, but he turned it down, to my knowledge, twice. Other than then, there's nothing. So I'm just glad to have the fight, whether it's a catchweight title fight. I don't fucking care. I'm just glad to be fighting one more time this year, and yeah, it is what it is.
And your opponent, Robert Hale, November 18th. Obviously he was a former champion, another promotion. What do you think about your opponent? And can you kind of break down this fight for me?
Robert Hale, apparently he was a big football player, like 260 pounds at one point. Turned pro in 2017. He fought at 55. And then last fight at 55 was 2020, and then he moved up to 70. So I know he's not a ginormous individual. So that's why I agreed to the fight at 180. Like if he fought at 85 his entire career and then all of a sudden said, hey, I want to do a catchweight 180, I would absolutely say no. Fucking shove it up your ass. We're doing 170, 175. But the fact that he actually fought at 55 and 70, and then he just recently made 170 as of like 2 weeks ago or a week ago, lets me know that he's not going to be an absolutely ginormous 180. We'll be about the same size. I'm okay with that. He's experienced. He plays it safe, essentially. He's already backing up before his punches even land. He's got a deceptive reach at 75 inches at 5'10". Guys, stop fighting. Sorry, my dogs are just, 3 of them are just going at it. So if you hear some growling, I apologize. But anyways, he plays it safe. So he's already like leaning back and he's afraid to get hit. I can already tell. So he sticks to singular punches to try and use his reach. Singular punches, singular kicks. He likes to fight at a slow pace because he doesn't like being rushed. He doesn't like being hit. And if you pressure him, he just runs. So it's very simple. He fights at his pace and his pace alone, and he won't engage unless it's at his pace. Very predictable. That's why he's got 10 wins by decision and only 4 stoppages and 14 wins. He's got a fear of going to the ground because he fights super slow on the feet, just staying very methodical and whatever else. But then as soon as a takedown or a clinch is engaged, he clicks it up 3 gears. Like nitrous. Like if he fought with that level of intensity on the feet as he did defending takedowns and clinches, he'd probably have more finishes, which lets me know that he's afraid of going to the ground. So that gives me an edge. I'm not afraid of going to the ground, and I'll shoot on him. I'll get in his face. I'll pressure him. I'll take him out of his comfort zone. It's a very, very good fight for me everywhere. I feel very confident everywhere. He said there won't be any body snatching going on in this fight. That's fine. I'm not interested in snatching your body. I'm interested in making you uncomfortable and breaking you in half. So if he thinks he's got willpower, let's find out. I love it when people say, oh, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. Okay, cool. Come fight me. Don't be the bitch that you are that runs away when you can't fight. He'll be running. I'm going to have this guy on his heels running the whole fucking time because he will not want to engage, and especially after he feels my power. No, he'll fold. He will be folding quick.
Well, you've said it all. Now, you've been fighting for a long time. I think there's an idea that when there's veterans that fought for a long time, there's so much tape on them. And so sometimes opponents that may have not been as experienced have a lot more to look at, more tape to look at on their opponents. For yourself, though, is there things that you do to continue to evolve your game that make you more unpredictable?
Yeah, so we did that for my TKO run when I came back 2016. Every fight, we made a point to train and come out different. So it's like it didn't matter what type of tape they watched beforehand, they were getting a new Jesse Ronson every fight, and it showed. And that's the common thing that everybody said when they fought me is like, man, I watched your last fight and I watched your last, you're completely different. Derek Gauthier was the same. Like he's like, I fought him one time, TKO'd him in the 3rd round. Fought him the 2nd time, and he's like, man, you were just the way you came out, the way you moved, the things you were doing was just different. Same thing with Michael Dufour. The only thing, Troy Lampson, same deal. Oh, Jesse Ronson's a black guy. I could tell he didn't watch much tape on me. He was overconfident, but then I out-wrestled the D1 wrestler, and I submitted the jiu-jitsu black belt, and he beat Rob Hale. He beat Rob Hale, and I fucking murdered Troy Lampson. So for Rob Hale to say the things that he's saying is just beyond stupid to me. He's either not watching tape or he's just talking a game. But ever since I got released from the UFC, we went back to that old method where every time I fight, I'm a little different. So Norton Azari, when I fought him, I actually wanted to showcase some ground game. So it was a little risky, but you did it, and I pulled off the rear naked choke. Robert Serres was supposed to show like some slick striking. I ended up choking him out too. And then Vargas, the UFC vet, stopped him in a minute and a half. Ricardo Chavez, I thought was going to be a banger of a fight because that's what he likes to do is bang. But again, he was a little bitch. He's going to essentially the way I fought Chavez, I feel that Rob Hale's going to do the same thing. He's going to come out and he's just going to back up because he's not going to like the pressure. But again, it's going to be completely different. The way Rob Hale fights is super boring. And I got to make it exciting. I got to get in his face. So yeah, I might take some damage. I might go out past the 1st round, but I'm not going to let him make it his fight. So no matter how much tape he watches on me, it doesn't matter. It's not going to be what he expects.
And obviously, I know you're focused on this fight. should you win this fight, you're going to be 5-0 at the end of 2023. Do you have any plans for next year? I know you talked about hinting at bare knuckle boxing. Is that something that also interests you as well?
Yeah, for sure. I would love to do. I've been talking with the guys at BKFC. They were interested in having midnight. They were interested in having me on a card. Holy fuck, this dog is needy. They were interested in having me on a card, but only if they come to Canada. So BKFC is coming to Canada next year. And if I'm not signed to a big promotion, expect me on BKFC. I would love to do it. 3 2-minute rounds, bare knuckle, just hands. Love it. It's very street fighting esque. And the guys in BKFC in my weight class at 75 or even 85, they all fucking suck except for the champ. Lorenzo Hunt at 85. He's an animal, but would love to fight him too. Even still, bare knuckle boxing and game bred bare knuckle MMA would also be great. They pay well, just as good as the UFC. I'm sure their salary cap is a little lower than the UFC, but their money that they start off paying is very, very good. So bare knuckle boxing, bare knuckle MMA, I would love it. I would love to try Risen. That would be another good one. If Bellator figures their shit out, maybe there, or even PFL. You know, people said, what about the UFC? Are you done with the UFC? It's not that I'm done with the UFC. I'm just 0-5-1. And it would take a lot for me to get back, you know, just to 500, because the UFC's, they got 800 athletes. I'd be lucky to fight 3 times next year. So that would put me at 3 wins, you know, 3-5 if I got all 3. So it'd just be nice to get a fresh start somewhere like Bellator, even PFL. Yeah, I may be 0-2 in the PFL, but it's easy. They give guys 5 fights in a year, so it would be easy to overcome that. But yeah, I just want somewhere fresh, somewhere new. And that's what I'm looking for. Somewhere where I can finally, you know, I put 20 years into this sport, 50 amateur fights, going on 41 pro fights, something to make some money out of it, at least for the next couple of years.
Excellent. And given your insight, you being an MMA fighter, like we've seen high level guys get into like bare knuckle boxing or boxing in general, and some of them just aren't exceeding at that. What do you find is the problem with that?
It's a pedigree. So a lot of guys, you're seeing a lot of these people get into it. They were wrestlers. Bare knuckle boxing is the furthest thing from fucking wrestling, the furthest thing from jiu-jitsu. Like Chad Mendez, he's a fucking wrestler. He's not a boxer. Eddie Alvarez doing very well. The guy boxed. He knows what he's fucking doing. Mike Perry has 0 fight background, but the guy knows how to street fight. He's been in a million street fights. He can throw fucking hands. He's a very, very good boxer. A lot of these MMA guys going over to bare knuckle boxing are fucking grapplers. You don't have guys like me who have literally had 50 amateur boxing and kickboxing fights. Like, I've fought boxing and kickboxing a ton of times. Yeah, sure, I've done MMA, but my main thing is boxing and kickboxing. And I can hang with professional boxers. Just doing straight boxing rounds, people think I'm a pro boxer. Like, dude, why don't you do pro boxing? Too many politics. Got to get 30 fights before you get paid, whatever else. People don't have a pedigree anymore. And a lot of the guys switching from MMA over to that shit, like I said, aren't strikers. So that's why it's not working out for them. And they got to understand that. You got to have a foundation. You build a house, you need to build a foundation. You don't have a foundation, you're going to have a shitty house. So you can't just make the switch over to bare knuckle boxing unless you've been in some street fights or you have some boxing experience.
And I guess like now, UFC 297 is going to be in Toronto. I know we kind of briefly talked about that. You've been in the game for a long time. Obviously you're one of the OGs of Canadian MMA. But looking at this new group of these fighters coming out and taking over in the UFC, especially with Canada. Obviously Canada's coming back with all the events again. What's your thoughts about having these cards in Toronto and Vancouver, and they're stacking all this Canadian talent? I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
The thing is, we talked about this the other day, where MMA in Canada doesn't get its just due. Canada is full of fucking pricks that love hockey. If it's not hockey, they don't fucking care. They're not going to get off their wallets, whatever else. So the UFC is like, oh, maybe we'll just stack the card with Canadians and the Canadians will come out and support. No, nah, it's not hockey. They don't support. If Montreal, fuck yeah. I love fighting in Montreal and Quebec because they support their MMA fighters. Out west, man, they support their MMA fighters. But in Ontario, nah, it's hockey. If it ain't hockey, it ain't shit. And it sucks. It really sucks because you'll go to that event in Toronto and the arena will be empty probably until about the pay-per-view starts, which is horrible. It's not fun. Yeah, we got 40 million people here, and we will sell out the arena, but it just sucks for the, and they'll put all the Canadians on the undercard except for maybe Mike Malott. He'll be on the pay-per-view because he's big shit. He's awesome and he's gonna kill Magny and become top 15. But even still, you look at Ireland, they got what, 7 million people. Conor McGregor, like they all love him. You know what I mean? You go anywhere else in the world, they support. It doesn't matter what it is. You're a professional athlete, you're on live TV, they support you. But for some reason in Canada, if it ain't hockey, it ain't shit. It sucks, and it's been that way forever. And I wish people would get over that. And to be honest, I don't think they ever will. So it's just really, really shitty. So it doesn't matter if they stack the card full of Canadian talent. It'll always be that way unless we get another GSP, which might be able to do it, but I doubt it. I doubt we'll ever have the pull that hockey has in Canada, and it's just really, really shitty. But I'm glad that the UFC is finally coming back to Canada because, like I said, we do have a lot of good fighters up here. It's just that we don't have the support that hockey has or that other places like Brazil, Ireland, England, Australia, Russia have for their fighters.
Do you find and because we're talking about the UFC here, do you find it's a bit on the UFC's side as well? They need to do their part to help promote MMA in Canada more as well?
Not at all. I mean, the UFC does a great job at promoting their stars in local town. Like they're doing a great job at promoting Mike Malott versus Neil Magny. You know what I mean? They got Marc-Andre Barriault versus Chris Curtis. Like they're putting it out there. The UFC's doing their job. They have millions, hundreds of millions of followers. And it's not, the UFC's doing their part. The fighters are doing their part. But again, like I said, this is Canada. Remember, it's not hockey. So there's only so much you can do without getting the love. Like TSN, Canadian networks, Canadian newspapers, radio stations, they're not going to jump on it. They're going to go, but MMA, is that new hockey? Is that hockey? No, okay, fuck it. We don't want it. You know what I mean? And it requires the UFC's doing their part. Everyone else is doing their part. It's stations in Canada that need to fucking get off the hockey dick and fucking start promoting it. But that's not going to happen anytime soon.
For sure. And I don't want to take too much more of your time. So I just want to ask, I know, your iconic walkout is always great. You got your whole get up and everything. What's your walkout song going to be this time around? Do you have something figured out?
Yeah. It's similar to what it was the last time. It's just not going to take a minute and a half for things to kick in. I know I like to get the fans, antsy and waiting and amped up with big beats, big drops. But like I said, I'm not main event, so I got to make it. It's the same song. It's just there's just different. I can't remember the word for it. Like different covers of the song, so it's like a different band doing a cover for it. So it'll hit a lot quicker. And because I'm not the main event, I can't take up everybody's time. But yeah, I just love those heavy metal fucking Doomslayer songs. And the flannel jacket just comes out with the mustache. Yeah, this is gonna go. I'm gonna have that dirty mustache and just. I'm there for business, man. I'm not there to fuck around. I'm there to kill somebody, and it's up to the guy in the ring to stop me from killing that other dude. And I just want to put on exciting fights for fans so people talk about it and they get excited when they see me fight. Like, oh, Jesse Ronson's fighting? Yeah, he's gonna bash some fucking skulls. That's what I want. From the music all the way up until the bell goes.
Excellent, Jesse. Well, again, like I said, I don't want to take much more of your time. I know you have things to do. So I want to appreciate you taking the time. And it's always a pleasure chatting with you. Great guy. And we're looking forward to seeing you fight on November 18th. And just good luck, man.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you guys having me on the show.